Dear friends, we want to enter together with a mutual effort into a lesson with Rabash, to cleave to him as one, and at the end of the lesson we'll also have a workshop where we share our impressions, and we'll read a preparation excerpt for the lesson from Rav's words. Rav says, all the recordings of this I recorded on my tape recorder, and from them we have all of his lessons. That's how we studied. Never paid attention at all to who knew more, who knows less. It wasn't relevant to how much you achieve in the study. I have some volume of his tests. He would write some note about what's written in the text, in Baal HaSulam's text, right in the margins of the page. And it's interesting that afterwards he would cross it out and write incorrect on top of what he himself had written down. And he would write another note next to it. Then again he would cross it out, meaning cross a line through the note and write incorrect. And write something else. And there are really many cases like this. He would even write the date next to it.
מתוך בעל הסולם תלמוד 10 הספירות, כרך א' חלק ד',
עמוד
244 דף רמ"ד, פרק ה',
Volume 1, Part 4, Chapter 5, Item 8, from the words of the Ari. We're going to read Item 8 from the writing from the Ari before we enter the study, because Rabash, the lesson with Rabash will start from Item 100, Inner Light. Item 8, the words of the Ari. From Nekudim and below, there are no more than 5 inner and 2 surrounding, and there cannot be any less than that. However, from the world of Nekudim downward, which is the world of Atzilut, there is one drawback, that not more than 5 inner lights and 2 surrounding lights, which are the surrounding of Yechidah and the surrounding of Chaya, manifested in all their details. However, the other inner 3 do not have the phases of Naran, of surrounding lights, but only the phases of Yechidah and Chaya, which surround everyone and not their own phases. They do have other disparities and drawbacks according to the order of the Patsufim and the worlds, but the rule in them is that there cannot be less than 5 inner lights and 2 upper surrounding lights.
Let's see what's written there. 100. This means that even in the Roshim heads of the Partsufim, after the world of Nekudim, we do not find more than 5 inner and 2 surrounding. It is so because of the ascent of the lower hay to the Einaim, which is the association of the quality of mercy with judgment that was done there. Because the place of the coupling was in Chokhmah of the Rosh, which is the Einaim, because of it, Bina, Zeranpin, and Malchut of the Rosh weren't outside the Rosh. This is what is called the Guf, body, to the state of from above downward, which is the face of the Guf. Thus, all that remains in the face of the Rosh is only Keter and Chokhmah. As this is explained in length in my explanation of Panim Meirot and Panim Aspirot, the interpretation, commentary on the Tree of Life. This is completely perplexing. What is so difficult here? One, that name the inner five. If I say the lower hay in the enaim, there is no inner hay. So if he says that Bina and Zun come out, then 3 phases are missing. But he still says 2 phases, 2 surrounding. We'll see a bit more. 200. What does it say above? It starts with other surrounding lights. However, the other surrounding lights, the phases of Yechida and Chaya, these are the 2 surroundings. However, the other inner 3 do not have the phases of Naran, of surrounding lights. But only from the phases of Yechida and Chaya, that which surround everyone and know their own phases. What does it mean? Let's see again in 200. This means that the 2 surrounding lights, Yechida and Chaya, surround the 3 lower lights of Naran as well. Though not from the phases of Naran, but from the phases of Yechida and Chaya. Know that all this refers to the general surrounding lights. Although there are always 5 internal and 5 surrounding lights in the particular surrounding lights. For there is no light that does not have internal and surrounding. So, literally, what does it mean that for there is no light that does not have internal and surrounding? Since it is impossible to receive any light except through coupling by striking. What is coupling by striking? He makes a calculation. I will not receive anything. Whatever he can receive in order to bestow, he'll receive it, and the rest he won't. So it turns out that a part he receives and a part he leaves as surrounding lights. It follows accordingly that if I say that there is no light that doesn't have 10 Sefirot, immediately they divide it into inner and surrounding. He drinks wine. He drinks enough to get drunk, and he leaves the rest. He drinks arak, and he leaves so that he won't get drunk. He drinks beer, he drinks in order to not get drunk. So it turns out that he receives a part and he doesn't receive another part. I don't want to speak about spirituality, we don't understand it, but this we do understand. So that there won't be the bread of shame, we need to aim so that he won't become drunk, he'll be despicable. So as much as we can aim in order to bestow, this he receives, and the rest you leave aside. You understand that? Now, surrounding. So this is now a different matter. If we say that there was a second restriction, Malchut ascended to Bina, we should also explain that it's not that Bina became a will to receive. Bina is called Ozen, ear in corporeality. The Ozen never wants anything. However, whatever the heart the heart wants. He can use the ear for it. I can give an allegory about that. A man has sight, hearing, smell, speech. He doesn't use these four senses for himself, but only for the benefit of others. When they want something from him, then he uses them. This is considered that Malchut uses the face of Bina, but Malchut remains Malchut. Bina will never be Malchut, because this means only that Malchut doesn't use her own face, which is considered receiving in order to receive, or receiving in order to bestow. It's considered that she no longer uses Malchut. In spirituality, we learn that every new form is a new face. This is why the Ari comes and says, you should know that in Arich Anpin there are no more than 9 Sefirot. Until Arich Anpin, they all have 10 Sefirot. But only Arich Anpin of Atzilut doesn't have it. So he asks, there is a rule that there is nothing that doesn't have Malchut. Zeranpin is under the Ateret Yesod, the crown of the Yesod. So we have this inner light and says, well, what is the description of Ateret Yesod? Does it have Malchut or does it not have Malchut? So he explains about that every new form is a new face. It therefore follows that if Malchut does not use her vessel of reception, but only to the extent that she's incorporated with the vessels of bestowal, it is no longer called the same Malchut. It's already a different face. Therefore, with the Ateret Yesod, it implies to us that Malchut no longer uses her own face, which is called receiving, in order to bestow. No. Even in Gadlut, in greatness or adulthood, when she uses the vessels of reception, it's only to the extent that vessels of bestowal are incorporated with the vessels of reception, not the vessels of reception by themselves. What did you learn with this allegory, if you remember it? Do you remember the allegory?
Yes.
But incorporation is a different matter. I once gave this allegory. One gave wine to the other one, and both people drank from one cup. One was a smart kid. He said, I don't want to drink wine at all. I'll just dip a piece of cake in it, and you can drink the whole wine, okay? So he dipped it until the cup became empty. It turns out that through incorporation, we can extract everything. We can drink the wine at once and get drunk, meaning it will be receiving in order to receive, so you can't overcome it. But here, each time we just use a little bit of the vessels of reception so we can correct them in order to bestow. That's the lesson. It turns out that the Malchut also, when I say the bottom Hey in the Einayim, when we have no more than Kete Chochma and Gar of Bina, in each and every Sphira, we learn that there is incorporation. So we have 10 Sefirot. Malchut now receives in the light of Chasadim that there is in each and every Sefirah. From the vessel of reception that has now been incorporated, which is now from Bina and below, in each and every Sefirah, she doesn't receive. So what do I know? There are 5 internal and 5 surrounding. And when I say that there is no more than Kete Chochma and Bina, this means in that each and every Sefirah, whatever we receive from it. So he comes and says the following. When Malchut rose to Binah, we also call that the bottom hay in the Einayim. What comes out is only Zeranpin of Malchut and Malchut. Why does Zeranpin and Malchut come out? And Galgalta and Enaim, Ketech Chochma and Binah remain. We learn that from the source of it, from the origin. Where was the restriction in Nekudot of Sag, which are Binah, that was able to descend below the taboo, because there are no vessels of reception there. Binah is vessels of bestow, so she will not mix with the phase 4 that is there below the tabur, whereas Ab and the Te'amim of Sag, who have vessels of Chokhmah, if they will see that there is Chokhmah that can be received, they will yearn for it. They will want to receive it. They don't have a screen, so it will be receiving in order to receive. This is forbidden. This is why they didn't come down to be filled. Only to Malchut, they didn't descend to Malchut. Only Binah, which is light of Chasadim, vessels of bestow. So there's no issue there. Whatever you can receive, you do it in bestow. So there's no concern, no fear that they'll mix with the vessels of reception that are below the tabur, so that they won't be able to overcome them and receive them in order to bestow. This is why he asks, why was the second restriction made? They might get mixed. So you're saying, and the answer is, Binah is incorporated with Zat, the bottom 7. Binah is incorporated with what is the root of Zeranpin. It needs to give Zeranpin the illumination of Chokhmah. It follows that Zat of Binah that needs to receive the illumination of Chokhmah for Zeranpin, here there was a mixture. So we learned that Ketech Chokhmah and Binah and Gar of Binah, in order for them not to mix, this is called the place of the emanation, Atzilut, what came out of the degree, Zeranpin and Malchut in Binah. Whatever they need to give to Zeranpin, they mixed in a phase of receiving in order to receive. So whatever he'll receive will be in order to receive. There was a restriction on that. So he comes and tells us that the vessel of Zeranpin became a surrounding vessel, an external vessel for the Makif of Chaya. Why? We will see that later. So this Malchut that came out and became an external vessel for the Makif of Yechidah, the surrounding of Yechidah. Why Zeranpin and Malchut became as an inverse relation to the surrounding of Chaya and the surrounding of Yechidah, according to this well-known rule that there is an inverse relation between vessels and lights. Meaning, if there are 3 vessels, or let's put it the other way around. If there are 3 lights, they enter into 3 vessels. Neshama goes into Keter, Ruach into Chokhmah, Nefesh into Binah. If Chaya comes also, then Chaya is in the Keter, and Nefesh goes down to Zeranpin. It turns out that when can Zeranpin enter into the degree? Precisely when the light of Chaya comes. It turns out that now it becomes an external vessel to whom? To the light of Chaya. It should be in the degree in internality, then he received the light of Nefesh. But now he receives the surrounding of Chaya, which is only an illumination from the outside. Later on, when the light of Yechidah comes in the vessel of Keter, then the light of Nefesh that was in the vessels of the Ranpin goes down to Malchut. It turns out that when does Malchut enter into the degree? When the light of Yechidah comes. Now Yechidah cannot come in because there's no vessel for it. It turns out that he receives it as illumination from the surrounding of Yechidah. It turns out that now, in the world of Nikudim, when we have in the Rosh, because of the second restriction and onwards, that the second restriction is not cancelled, so now we have 5 internals. Why? The Naran, when I say that there are 5 phases there, in every phase the Naran, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama shine. They're called 5 internals. What's lacking? What's missing in general? Zeranpin and Malchut in each and every phase. But this is so in the Rosh, but not in the Guf. Why? There is a rule. We talked about it yesterday. What is internal and surrounding? We talked about it before. Internal means that he can make a screen and say, I want to receive. Why? He wants to bestow. He is able to make a screen. And if with whatever he cannot make a screen, if he will receive it, it will be in order to receive. So he says, I don't want to receive it. This is called surrounding. It remains on the outside. But in the Rosh of the degree, where there are no true vessels yet, then the coarseness is not yet regarded as coarseness. There is still a little bit of equivalence between the vessel and the light, to the extent that he can receive from it the surrounding illumination, not more. But in the Guf, where there are already true vessels, how can they come into the vessels which are called true vessels? This is why in the Rosh there are 5 internal, which are truly only 3. In truth, there is no more than Naran, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, and 2 surroundings, which are Chaya and Yechidah. Now, the Chaya and Yechidah, are they surrounding the way it was in Ak, when there is internal and surrounding? Some part receives from Chaya, and a part which is from the outside, a part you receive from Yechidah, and a part of what was on the outside? No. Turns out that when he says that there are surrounding of what should be internal, that's also not so. Is it clear now?
Yes.
Okay, now we will move into item 200 in inner light. 200. This means that the 2 surrounding lights, Yechidah and Chaya, surround also the 3 lower lights, Naran, but not from the phases of Naran. This is not as internal and surrounding what shines in Naran. It's a completely different matter. But from the phases of Yechidah and Chaya, no, that all this refers to the general surrounding lights, though there are always 5 internal and 5 surrounding in a particular surrounding lights. For there is no light that does not have internal and surrounding. Meaning, if I say that there is no more than Ketech Chochmah Binah there, it has to be 10 Sefirot. In each and every Sefirah, a phase shines, which is called Kachab, Ketech Chochmah Binah. In that respect, there is internal and surrounding. We learned about the surrounding in the Guf. What is the surrounding in the Guf? They receive in the internality. However, when we speak of a higher degree, there is another phase of surrounding. He calls them the bone, marrow, bones, and tendons. These are called the inner lights. Flesh and skin, that's already surrounding. The flesh surrounds all the guf, and the skin also surrounds the entire guf. What is levush and heichal, garment and hall? Rav says a person sits and he has a garment on him. So this garment is not a part of the guf, of the body. And heichal, the hall, it's even further away from the guf. So now light comes, it's called surrounding. The garment and the hall are called surrounding. In the end, the light is called the surrounding of Chaya and Yechida, and the garment and the hall are called Chaya and Yechida. And I asked a question about it using reality. I told him, when I go to the sea, I see people there without a garment, without a hole. I've never been in the sea without flesh, without skin. So what is the difference? The flesh and the skin are also internal. The flesh takes vitality from my body. The skin receives vitality from my body, but the garment doesn't. If they are internal, why do I say that they are called surrounding? It's a hint. In truth, the flesh and the skin are the vessels of the garment and the hole, Zeranpin and Malchut. Zeranpin and Malchut remain below in Bia, and they do not join before the end of correction, so long as the second restriction is not cancelled. And when we say that the flesh and the skin have Chaya and Yechida in them, it is only from the incorporation with those vessels of the garment and the hole, in the incorporation of the vessels of Achab, the vessels of reception. But in truth, it's the vessels of the panim, anterior, that it's incorporated with them. It's called bina, that is sweetened, malchut, that is sweetened in bina, malchut, that is incorporated with the vessels of pistol. It turns out that these are not true vessels. They don't have true light. They only have dak for it, but not a true vessel. This is why there is a hint, an intimation that these are not the true vessels. The true vessels remain in the garment and the hole. This is only by incorporation, but what do they receive? In the internality. This is why you can have it in the marrow and bones and tendons without the flesh and the skin. I want to show you examples of what surrounding are. Surrounding means a lot of changes. Item 200, I'll repeat it.
Item 200, I repeat. This means that the two surrounding lights, Yechida and Chaya, surround the lower lights, Naran, as well, that they stand above them, though not from the phases of Naran, but from the phases of Yechida and Chaya. Certainly, Yechida and Chaya is not Naran. So I explained to you that there are specific, special, or particular surroundings. As we said, the internal and surrounding. So every decree that you receive until the coupling and striking, you take a little and you leave behind a little. The part that you take is called internal. The part that you leave is called surrounding. It turns out that Yechida and Chaya, which surround the Naran, surround the Naran as it was, as the Naran was, a part it received and a part it did not receive. It doesn't receive at all these surroundings. It means that it wants to intimate at what the Ari is saying. The surrounding of everyone were not of their own phase. Let's say that in the Yechida and Chaya there's also a little bit, but there isn't. you find that it's not the same. The surrounding that I'm talking about, that Naran have surrounding from their own of their own phase, meaning the part they receive from Neshama and a part they don't receive. It typically names them the five, because it has to be five qualities or five phases. And what Yechidah and Chaya, these surroundings, I'm not saying that they received something from it, from the internality. It's all surrounding. Flesh and skin, Chaya Yechida, it receives in adulthood greatness. Before that, it does not have any other surroundings. But we learn in the embryo, it has greatness. He sees from one end of the world to the other, and it has all the degrees in the embryo. He is born out of that. And he says the following: a baby that is born has to be born in wholeness. He asks, how come a newborn baby has only Nehi? Does he have 10 Sefirot or he does not have 10 Sefirot? In the embryo, he has 10 Sefirot. If he has 10 Sefirot, I must say that he has 10 vessels. And what does it mean that he has Nehi? It says in the embryo, each and every Sefirah is only shining with a small light, the Nehi of that Sefirah. That is why when he's born, he has all his organs, but he cannot sit yet lying down, which shows that his legs and his head are on the same level, same degree. There is no more than Nehi of lights. And this is called of vessels. And this is the case in each and every Sefirah. Later, when it begins to receive Ruach by nursing, suckling, he can already sit. There's already a difference in the Rosh, the Guf, the Raglaim, the head, the body, and the legs. Meaning that in each and every Sefirah, there's an additional force. Conception to Chagat of Orot and Chagat of the Chagat of lights and Chagat of vessels. What does it mean, Chagat of vessels? Chagat of vessels, right? They function. They can already sit. He still has all 10 Sefirot, all 248 organs of the baby, of the newborn. Later, when he acquires Mochin, already the Nehi of the vessels of the legs are functioning. He already has a brain. It means he acquired a higher degree. In that case, all the vessels must be. It just depends what shines inside the vessels, how much forces are in the vessels that they can function. You have legs, but they can't function. The vessel of the raglaim, of the feet, of the legs of the baby. Why? There's no light yet that needs to shine in them to impart them this force In corporeality here, you can say the same thing in spirituality. All the vessels are present, but they're not functioning. They are missing additional lights, and they receive that later on. It turns out that the flesh and skin, basar ve'or, that have to function, but only in the time of chaya and yichida. So we need to start chapter 6, page 245 in the Hebrew book, chapter 6, below item 1. Let us explain the emergence of these lights called akudim. What does it mean, emergence? There are no places here. Emergence means revelation. He's going to explain now how the lights called akudim were revealed. Know that when they emerged, they did not emerge complete. The reason for it is that the intention of the emanator was to now make the beginning of the havayot of the vessels, the plural of havaya, to clothe the light for the receivers so they could receive. Thus, since they emerged incomplete and unfinished, they returned to their root above to be corrected and completed, and thus a vessel was made. What is he saying here? That is why they intentionally came out incomplete, so they could rise above, acquire correction, acquire the correction, and by that become vessels. What was lacking before? Let's see item 2. The thing is that the phase of vessels was certainly in potential, though it was not actually inside the light. Since it was a vessel in the phase of light that was coarser and cruder, the vessel was called light was coarser. Though it was well connected with the essence, with light, consequently, its phase remained concealed of the vessel, since it was connected with the light. It is so because when the light emerged through the peh outward, it all emerged mixed together. That is why its quality was not evident, was not revealed. Whereas now, when they returned to ascend and be completed, then certainly through the emergence of the light outside of the peh, that light of the phase of the vessels, which we refer to as coarser, now acquired additional coarseness. Thus, it too cannot return to its origin as in the beginning. That light that is coarser and cruder, and the refined light expanded from it and rose to its source. In that state, further coarseness was added to the coarseness of the above coarse light, and the phase of the vessel was completed and remained. What does it say here? In item 1, he says, then generally speaking, the intention of the emanator was for the world of akudim to have vessels that the lower one could receive it. Thus, since they emerged incomplete, that by emerging incomplete, they have to rise once more, and thus a vessel was made. In item 2, he explains to us, why wasn't there a vessel before that? If there was no vessel, who did receive the light? Then you must say there was a vessel there. In that case, what are you saying? Why are you saying that he has to rise above and then later you will have a vessel? So he explains it. And the refined light expanded from it, from the coarser light, and rose to its source. In that state, further coarseness was added to the coarseness of the above coarse light, and the phase of the vessel was completed and remained. That's then it appears that the coarser light is the vessel. That's how he explains it. Another item 3. And if you say that when the coarser light called reflected light and the refined light called direct light, when they're together, they are connected, then you can recognize a vessel. Below, he says that when the refined light departed and only the coarser light remained below, the coarse light appears as a vessel. What will you have later? And if he says that when the refined light returns to descend and expand in the vessel, later will it return, the light, and the vessel will become refined as in the beginning and cease being a vessel. What do we gain from having the refined light going up? And you see its coarseness, why it goes up. But later, when it will return, it will be the same thing. The light will cancel the vessel as before the ascent. Is the question clear? The answer to this is that not all 10 Sefirot which rose to their origin returned and to descend down below, although the 9 lower ones alone descended below in the Parzuf, below later, and the highest, which is Keter, remained with the emanator always. The second degree is lacking. There's no more degree of Keter, but the degree of Chokhmah, level of Chokhmah. Thus, it turns out that the light of Chokhmah returned to clothe in the vessel of Keter, and so it is with all the other Sefirot. The light of Bina in the vessel of Chokhmah. You find that in every vessel there's a deficiency left. So he says, and the vessels can receive and reduced light from it now, compared to what they had at first. Now you can recognize a vessel. What's the first hint? Look above. What does it say? Know that when they emerged, they did not emerge complete. Item 1 below. As we have written before, this is because only Malchut received the complete 5 inner Parzufim called Na'an Chai in wholeness, in completeness, but the other first 9 Sefirot were deficient. Their Ampin lacked Keter, Bina lacked Chokhmah too, Chokhmah lacked Neshama as well, and Keter also lacked Ruach. The outer vessels for the surrounding lights were absent there altogether. as will be explained later. I can tell you I can give you a little introduction to what he's saying here. According to the known rule that the light expands below, he says, everyone emerge with the level of nefesh. There's no changes in the light. Every light that appears has only nefesh in it. However, the level of the light, or the greatness of the light, the measure of the light depends on the measure of the vessels. I told you about this corporeal allegory, if you remember. There's one wire in my house that has the power to illuminate my house, my entire house. Light. Comes another one and says to him, I also have this wire, and it can heat as well, this wire. The third person comes and says, for me, this wire also cools. A fourth one comes and says, in my place, it grinds the meat and the fish, the same wire. And another one comes and says, with me, he also does the laundry. Meaning the actions of this electric wire from the corporeal allegory appear according to the vessels that we give it. Then it acts. It appears. That light, there's no change in the light. Only the vessels grow the light. Now, or amplify it. By what? Through the vessels, you can see the abilities of the light, the measure of the light. That's why I'm saying, beforehand there's a rule. The small lights appear, whereas the large vessels appear. In that case, when the light of nefesh comes, it enters the vessel of keter. When the light of ruach comes, it enters the vessel of keter. So the light of nefesh that was in the vessel of keter descends to the vessel of chokhmah. There's already now two vessels in the light of nefesh. It has nefesh and ruach. Later comes the light of neshama. It descends to the vessel of keter. So the light of ruach that was in the vessel of keter descended to chokhmah. And the light of nefesh that was in the vessel of chokhmah descended to the vessel of binah. You find that the light of nefesh now has three vessels. There's neshama of nefesh, and ruach has two vessels. There's ruach of ruach, and neshama has one vessel, nefesh of neshama. Later, the light of chokhmah comes to the vessel of keter. Then neshama descended to the vessel of chokhmah and also added one for each one. So neshama that was in binah went down, descended to zeranpin. There's already chaya of nefesh. Nefesh? Oh, nefesh already has chaya. Well, chaya of nefesh. And neshama of ruach. And ruach of neshama. And nefesh of chaya. Later comes that light. We have the level 4, phase 4 of coarseness. The light becomes the light of nefesh, the light of yechidah in the vessel of keter. Then you see that yechidah as one vessel, there's nefesh of yechidah, ruach of chaya, neshama of neshima, and yechidah of nefesh. Is the calculation clear? He says further that the surrounding vessels for the surrounding light, the external vessels for the surrounding lights would end there completely. We'll elaborate on that later. What does he want to say? When the light is clothed in the vessel, then he refers to the light as the direct light, a refined light. And the reflected light, he refers to it as a coarse light.
Now
let's share in impressions we received from the lesson. Every friend will share what did I hear from Rabash that left an impression in me.
כן, בהתחלה הוא...
In the beginning, he explained that in the particular vessels,
יש בו חלק פנימי וחלק...
every light has an internal part and a surrounding part.
הפנימי זה מה שהוא יכול לקבל על מנת
The internal is what he can receive in order to bestow. What is not yet capable of receiving in order to bestow is considered as surrounding light.
בינה שיורדת למלכות,
Bina that goes down to Malchut, which is light of Hasadim, so they can receive in order to bestow only on Gar and Sat of Bina, but not Zeran Bin. But Zeran and Malchut cannot receive, so they're regarded as the surrounding of Chaya and Yechida. Then he gave this example with the cake. And he also gave the example of a baby, even though he has all the organs, all 10 Sefirot, but it is considered that he only receives nahi of lights, meaning he can only use. He can't use all of his organs, and as he grows, he can receive more lights in the vessels as much as he can function.
סיכום יפה, איתן. אין מה להוסיף, רק הסיפורים האלה.
Nice summary, Eitan. Nothing to add. The stories, the restrictions or limitations to a baby that is born complete. Everything is in wholeness, but the legs and the head are on the same level. And then gradually more lights enter the vessels, then it begins to sit, and then there is a difference between the head and the legs. And then he receives mochin, and then he is able to stand. There are many discernments there. It's beautiful how Rabash describes everything to us in a way that simple people like us are able to understand all these systems. It's a miracle.
I don't understand these systems, but what I understand is that we're together, and in the connection between us, we were incorporated with the power of Rabash and with the reflected light, and he truly played in the spiritual world his perception of reality, and we, like children, connect to him. We connect between us, and we try to absorb this grace of sanctity, the greatness in Rav, that really the Creator speaks from his mouth. We become incorporated, and we draw the light.
It totally plays us. The lesson was around the point of the second restriction that divides the vessels in two. Part internal, part external, and all the complexity that it creates. Not complexity, well, there's both this wonderful incorporation. This is a dramatic stage because also with the lights, there's this inversion in the vessels and the lights, which confuses us. throws us off. But the beauty here is that he gives examples. The allegories that he gave are they're really from the roots, how these roots appear, manifest in this world. And it's amazing that it's a single system, and if you know how to look at it, you can see the connections between everything. It's truly miraculous.
Yes, a very rich lesson. I would actually divide this lesson into 3 parts. Hearing everything at once, it's a bit too much. In the beginning, he talked about the first restriction, then the second restriction. Then he talked about the embryo, the ubar. But everything he talked about, these examples of one drinking beer, the other one drinking wine, one eating the cake, the one who drinks doesn't want to get intoxicated, and then that he went to the beach and he sees people there walking without garments, but he never saw somebody walking without their flesh or tendons. He has good humor. It's really all interesting.
Yes, Rabash is guiding us with his voice to the place of spirituality. I understand, but we feel Rabash. It's very, very powerful.
נעבור לחלק הבא של